What's up, guys, and welcome to another video by Imagi Fantasy Football. Today, we're going to be going over 2021 full PPR fantasy running back rankings. We're going to go over the top 6 running backs you should be looking for and the top 6 that should be going off the board right away. So, without talking too much, let's get right into it. First, we have Christian McCaffrey. So, I personally think this guy's the RB1. Everybody in the group here, all the guys think he's a consensus RB1, and really isn't much to say other than this guy's just a beast and he should be going first in all your drafts.
Yeah, I see no reason that, like Shree was saying, there's no reason that McCaffrey should be going anything other than number one in any draft. I mean, unless you're like a diehard fan of Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, something like that, you're a diehard Vikings fan, Titans fan, then maybe you go number one. But other than that, I don't see any reason that you should be going to anyone other than McCaffrey at number one. I mean, he played 3 games last year, above 25 points in all three. I mean, he's like a quarterback, but at the running back position, it's just insane what he does for your team.
Yeah, definitely. So, wow, that's kind of obvious. We know that CMC is the number one running back pretty much. Now let's go into number two. This might be a slightly more controversial, but pretty much he's almost a consensus RB2 everywhere. We got Dalvin Cook.
I don't think it's really that controversial. Alvin Cook's the number 2 running back basically everywhere. I mean, what is there not to like about this guy? He has so much talent, and whenever he's on the field, he is the Vikings offense. He gets the ball near so many times a game. He's a guaranteed 25 plus touches a game. But one thing I need to point out though is that he does have some injury concerns attached with him. But his first 2 seasons, he did miss a lot of games. In his entire career, he's never played more than 14 games in a season. So because of that injury risk, you should be prioritizing Alexander Madison if you do pick Dalvin Cook. But otherwise, whenever Dalvin Cook is he's available for you, he's going to be elite for your fantasy team.
Yeah, the Vikings haven't really changed much either from last year, and you saw the season Cook had, so I think he's a safe number 2 pick.
Yeah, they changed their offensive coordinator, but they just hired Gary Kubiak's son. It's the same offense. Nothing else is really going to be changing in that Vikings offense.
All right, from one Kubiak to another. All right, let's go to number 3 right away. We have Derrick Henry, and this guy's just a tank. And he's going to be going in number 3 in most of your leagues. Again, there's a bit of debate here with Saquon, Kamara, maybe even Nick Chubb could go here. But Derrick Henry, we believe that Arjun and Nav have him at RB4, while me, Rohan, and Vedant have him at RB3. So we got a bit of a split in the group here. But I personally think Derrick Henry's number 3. He's too good. His stats are too crazy to pass him up at number 3.
Yeah, so if you're ever debating between Derrick Henry and Alvin Kamara, I think this year Alvin Kamara, there's just too much. There's a little bit of risk, and Derrick Henry, I think there's absolutely no risk with him. Despite the addition of Julio Jones and AJ Brown, I think even with Arthur Smith leaving, I think he's still the center point of this offense. And with Kamara, there's just a little bit of risk with the quarterback change, and we don't know exactly who's going to start. We predict Jameis will start. But with Taysom Hill, he loses some of his rushing upside and some of his targets too. So I think Derrick Henry should be the consensus number 3.
I would have to disagree about your take on the risk, though, because like the offensive coordinator is huge to what Henry does. Like clearly he had 378 carries last year. With the new offensive coordinator, obviously the offense is going to stay the same for the most part, but you also add in Julio Jones. That's definitely a risk right there. And Julio Jones, AJ Brown, big red zone guys could take away from Henry's 17 touchdowns last year, but I still think he's the number 3. But I think it's close. Like him and Kamara, I think you could take either of them here.
Yeah,
I
the
mean,
reason
like, yeah, go ahead.
okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So the reason I have him at RB4 right now is because of I have him as an RB4 in PPR formats. Derrick Henry doesn't catch a lot of passes, and that's really going to be the tiebreaker for me. Like for Alvin Kamara, he's going to have that safe, consistent floor because he will get that pass catching work. But on the other hand, Derrick Henry, it is possible for him to get game scripted out. Like we've seen it in a couple of games last year. He gets a bunch of carries, like 20 plus carries, but he only gets his yards like 70 to 90 yards. And that's a good game in reality, in real life. But for fantasy, with his limited passing work, that's only going to be like 7 to 9 points. Like I remember in week 16 last year, which is the fantasy championship week for most leagues. He had over 25 touches almost, but he had 90 total yards, but he had nothing done in the receiving game. Didn't score a touchdown, so that way he only had 9 points, which is going to be a disappointing week, especially in PPR leagues. Um, He has a low floor and because of the passing game, his floor could be extremely low. However, his ceiling is obviously super high because he has the big play potential and he could win you a week with some of his plays. Other than that, I mean, you're just nitpicking at this point. I mean, these top 5, 6 RBs, all of them are great, and we need to rank them, right? That's the only reason we're like finding out. Oh, we're finding all these little faults in them. If you have him as your RB1, there's nothing to worry about. He's going to be a rock for your team.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. And one thing I was considering is that with the addition of Julio Jones, you might be thinking, oh, it's going to be more passing. It's going to be more passing oriented than last year, the Titans offense. But with how much the opposing defenses would stack the box against Derrick Henry, perhaps having Julio Jones on the outside there, or maybe if Julio Jones in the slot for a couple plays, could open up that running lane for Henry. And you can see the Titans using a lot more play action. And also, people might be wondering that with the amount of carries he's getting, Henry might get injured. But really, his play style is not like that. Not too much stress on the knees. So yeah, Henry's a great pick for number 3. And like Nav was saying, you can't really go wrong with any of these guys. So now let's move on to Alvin Kamara at number 4. This guy is a PPR monster. We've seen that in the last couple of years, but Drew Brees is not on that team anymore. And we have Jameis Winston, most likely to be the starting quarterback. Taysom Hill, they're having a little bit of QB competition, but most likely Jameis Winston will be coming out of that. So Alvin Kamara at number 4 for us here. We had Arjun ranked him at RB3, Don ranked him at RB5, Nav RB6, and me and Han ranked him at RB4. So some thoughts on that, guys.
Yeah, so I have Kamara at the highest. Like Tree said, I have him at RB3 just because we pointed out with Henry, he does have that low floor. But with Kamara, you're getting a pretty consistent floor because guy, every year I think that he's been in the league, he's gotten over 80 receptions. And I know those have all been with Drew Brees primarily, and that could go down maybe this year. But if it does go down at all, I don't see it going down very much. I think you're going to have to teach Jameis that with the way the Saints offense goes, I mean, you go these 6-7 slant routes to Michael Thomas or these low checkdowns to Kamara, and then he makes the play after the catch. So I think you're going to have to teach Jameis, you need to get rid of the ball quickly. That's how our offense goes. You need to get the ball to your playmakers, Kamara, Michael Thomas, quickly so that they can make a play after the catch. And so, I mean, the loss of Brees, obviously, it's not ideal, but I don't think it'll hurt him nearly as much as most people think. And I still would take him 3rd overall in drafts.
Okay, so first off, there have been some reports that Taysom Hill is starting to emerge as the front runner for the Saints quarterback job. Honestly, it could be Jameis, it could be Taysom. We don't really know right now what Sean Payton's thinking. But right now, I'm gonna assume it's Taysom, but I could easily see it being Jameis Winston. But either way, I don't really think it's gonna have much of an effect because Drew Brees really had a huge impact on what Alvin Kamara was able to do last year. Looking at some of the 3 weeks especially that Taysom Hill started, um, uh, week 11, Kamara only had 10.5 PPR points. He didn't even catch a pass that week. Like the next week against the Broncos, he only had 6 fantasy points, and then the next week against the Falcons, he actually did a little better, 17 points. But those 3 games were the worst performances of his entire season, and all 3 of them were in a row. Without Drew Brees, there is going to be some risk picking Alvin Kamara. His role might be a little diminished, but he's going to get a lot of pass catching work, which means on a week to week basis, he will have that a decently high floor, and he gets in the end zone a lot. Like there's no other way to put it. He gets in the end zone more than any other running back I've ever seen. Like he is so consistent. He can be the goal line back, and he has the big play potential. Alvin Kamara, I love him. I do have him at RB6, but still, it's like the top 6 running backs. Again, like I'm nitpicking there. I'd be completely fine with him as my RB1.
Just going back to what you were saying, you think that there's not really much of a difference if it's Taysom or Jameis. I feel like there is a pretty big difference. Like for me, having an RB3, I'm assuming Jameis is there, but with Taysom, I'd absolutely have to move him down just because we saw how not ineffective he was, but just how the decrease in points and production that he had with Taysom last year in those 3 games. And also with Taysom, I mean, Taysom likes to run a lot. We know that, obviously. And I mean, around the goal line, he loves to power it in the way a guy like Josh Allen does. So Kamara he loses a lot of goal line value because of Taysom, because of his presence around the goal line, and just because of his willingness and his ability to scramble rather than maybe checking it down to a guy like Kamara.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
the thing with Taysom is, you know, you mentioned his rushing at the goal line. I don't think if he's the starter, right? I can't see him doing that because like last year they had him do that primarily because Breeze, he was the starter. So they could afford for Taysom Hill to go out there, throw his body out, even in the games where he started because they knew Breeze would come back. They also had Winston coming off the bench, so they'd be fine. But
Well,
this year, if
Yeah.
Taysom's actually starting, I don't see them like throwing him out there, having him do all this tight end work that he's been
But
doing.
why?
Like, I don't see
Okay,
that
yeah.
happening.
Yeah. The
well,
tight end
yeah,
work,
yeah,
obviously. Tight end work, obviously. But your running thing, I think he's still gonna run the ball. There's
Mhm.
not a reason that he
No,
shouldn't run.
yeah,
If
yeah.
that's his strength, he's going to be running the ball. Like
I
I
mean,
don't
yeah,
see.
you're right. Yeah, like he'll definitely run the ball. But I'm just trying to say, like Arjun specifically mentioned goal line where they're just like pounding
Yeah.
it in with him. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't see that like happening to the level it was happening in the games he started last year, which is the worry. But and another thing to add, unrelated to Taysom Hill, is Kamara is too talented not to get the ball. His touches are just simply they're just not going to go down no matter who the QB is. He'll continue to get the ball. So he's a solid pick. As Nab was saying, we're just nitpicking again. But
Just I want to say one more thing. You were saying like he's not gonna do it to the extent that he did last year. I mean, that's obviously true. He might not be doing it like every time the way he was last year during the games that he did play in, but he's still going to be doing it a lot. I mean, we see Josh Allen, Cam Newton both be very successful playing the entire year. I mean, Newton had COVID, obviously that we're not going to include that, but we see them pounding it in a lot. And obviously the running backs lose a lot of goal line value on the Patriots and the Bills because of that. Taysom might be the best out of all three at it, so I don't see why he wouldn't continue to do that as well.
I'd just like to also say that Latavius Murray also, I think we're overlooking Latavius Murray. He had 150 rushing attempts last year. So if with Drew Brees departing, if the Saints decide to go to like more of a like run heavy offense with like Latavius as their main running back, I could also see Kamara's carries going down as well, plus with Taysom Hill running the ball. So while he still is definitely a top 6 running back, his talent, he's going to demand the touches. I think there's a lot of there's a moderate amount of risk picking him at as your fourth RB off the board.
I mean, with him having 150 carries, as you just said, Kamara only had 178, so it's nearly a 50-50 split. So I can't see. I mean, I can see that it's like something like very similar to this happening again, but I wouldn't say. I'd say there's absolutely no chance Latavius would ever overtake him in carries.
I don't think he'll overtake him, but actually, yeah, I think it could be a possibility. Like Jameis coming in, they might try to like. He's known to be kind of like an erratic player. So it's kind of like calm him down, kind of like get him used to the offense. They might do more of a traditional run, like a bigger back with Latavius. So while I don't think it will happen, I think it's definitely a possibility that Latavius Murray has more rushing attempts than Kamara,
Yeah,
at least early in the season.
Kamara is one of like the top 3 to 5 most efficient running backs in the league. So even
Yeah.
if he gets less touches, he's still gonna do great things with it. Only
Yeah.
thing that possibly could go down that could have a significant impact on him is these touchdowns. Like last year, he had a 6 touchdown performance. That's not going to be happening again. Let's be honest. He also got 5 receiving touchdowns. 21 total touchdowns is it's extremely high number. I only see that going down, especially because the Saints are going to be scoring less because of Drew Brees leaving.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
like I definitely agree with that. And to build upon that, it's not like Kamara is exclusively a receiver. I mean, look at the stats in the bottom there. He's had almost 1,000 rushing yards, and I don't see. I personally don't see Latavius Murray coming close to Kamara's carries. Even in a run-heavy offense, that offense is going to be running through Kamara. It's going to be the dump-off guy. He's still going to be the rushing guy. It's going to be the even in like maybe in a goal line scenario, they'll put Latavius in to have the bigger back. But like if you're starting a drive on the 20, Kamara is going to get most of those rushing attempts on that drive. All right. And so after Kamara now at number 5, we have Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb coming off a great season, over 1,000 rushing yards. And he's a beast of a player. But the one problem is he is on the Cleveland Browns. And even though Browns are run heavy, they have that guy Kareem Hunt on the team. Kareem Hunt has been cutting into some carries last year. It's a big debate we have at Imagi. And Nick Chubb, I think he's a great player, but I personally wouldn't have him over Saquon, Ezekiel, maybe even Austin Eckler. But that's just me. So what are we thinking?
It is just you. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. There's so much to love about Nick Chubb. Like, first off, you started off with Kareem Hunt. And honestly, now, after we've seen it for about a year and a half, nearly 2 years, Hunt doesn't scare me anymore. Nick gets his work every single week. He gets his 20 carries, and we also saw last year as the season progressed, we saw Nick Chubb's receiving work improve a lot compared to what it was at the beginning of the year. They trust Nick Chubb so much more than they trust Kareem Hunt. Um, the Browns, they have the best O line in the league. Um, Easily the best rushing offensive line in the league, run blocking offensive line in the league, and they're a run heavy team, and that just bodes so well for Nick Chubb. Another thing to add, he's in a contract season. He's playing for a new contract. He wants to get that Christian McCaffrey, Alvin Kamara type money, and you already know he's a silent killer. He's going to do what he does every single week. He has a high floor, and he also has a high ceiling because of his big play potential. Breaks off such long runs almost every single game, and like he is just so uber consistent. There's nothing to dislike about having Nick Chubb in your RB1 slot. So if I personally have him as my RB3, and that's because he has virtually no risk other than injury.
Yeah, I mean, he's really consistent. That's one thing you gotta love about Nick Chubb. Really consistent, and in the latter half of last season, he's been putting in more receiving work, and especially in a PPR format, that's definitely desirable. So really, you cannot go wrong with Nick Chubb. It's personal preference, honestly, when it comes to the end. Any more thoughts on Nick Chubb? Are we ready to move on?
No, I think he
That's
got it.
good. Yep.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on to our final guy of the day, we have Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, as you know, he got injured on September 20th last season, and he's been going through. He tore his ACL, and he's been going through like rehab and everything, got surgery and everything. And I mean, Saquon is just when he's on the field, he's a star. He is undoubtedly the best person on the field when he's on the field, and he's the number one running back in that offense. They even got rid of Wayne Gallman and all those guys, the Giants. And so Saquon Barkley is their guy. And Daniel Jones, he took a bit of a step up last season. And I love Saquon Barkley this season. The only thing is that recently reports came out that Saquon, when asked about his situation for week one, he said, we'll see game one. We'll see if he'll be available in week one. So you got to keep an eye out on that. That poses a bit of risk, but this guy's talent is undeniable. You saw him at he's gonna go to training camp. You're gonna see him there, and in his recent sightings, he's been seen making good cuts. He posted a recent picture showing his jack quads, and so you gotta love Saquon. So Saquon Barkley is definitely set for number 6.
Yeah, one thing to point out with Barkley is that, while as Sri mentioned, he got hurt in September, he actually only had surgery in November, which is something that maybe everyone doesn't know about. And, he didn't just hurt his ACL either. He hurt his meniscus and he hurt his MCL. And so, it's a long recovery. It's ACL alone. But then when you hurt the ligaments around the ACL, such as the MCL and the meniscus, it's going to take even longer. And, as Sri was mentioning as well, he hasn't been completely sure if he's going to be ready for week one. I think that's a bunch of, I'm not going to say the word, but you guys know what I'm saying. Like, I don't think that's true. I think Barkley's just playing it safe because, he's going to trust his body. And if the body doesn't feel ready for week one, regardless of what his doctor says, regardless of what, his supposed timetable is supposed to be, he's not going to play. So I don't think he's going to put himself out there and saying, I'll be ready for week one for sure. Yeah. Like, I just don't see that happening. I feel like he will essentially be ready for week one because, he got hurt in November. He'll come back in September. I think that'll be plenty of time for his recovery. But at the same time, he's going to play it safe. He's not just going to put himself out there, commit to playing week one, and then, maybe he won't play. But moving that aside, looking at the Giants offseason addition of Kenny Golladay, I still don't see that cutting into Barkley too much. I think, he should be fine.
Okay. Wait, no. We should restart. Just restart there for a second. We'll cut that out.
What happened?
So where were you when the screen cut out? Where were you?
Talking about Golladay.
Just restart talking about Golladay.
Yeah. Start talking about Golladay. All right. Take a break for like 5 seconds and then we'll start.
Nah, I won't do it.
Yeah, so moving on to the other Giants' other offseason addition and Kenny Golladay. I don't see that cutting into Barkley's work too much just because, he's so talented. If he's on the field, he's going to get the ball regardless of who's on the field. So, yeah, I think, again, he's a safe pick for you regardless of the injury. I think he'll be ready to go.
The only
Oh,
thing,
yeah, I mean-
Rohan, I just want to say this real quick.
Sure,
Only
yeah.
thing is that in the game, Saquon got injured. That I believe it was against the Bears.
Mhm.
You saw, I remember you were a Saquon Barkley owner last year, and
Yep.
you saw that game, and Saquon, like before he got injured, he wasn't really going anywhere. I think he put up like less than 5 fantasy points, and he was struggling, and his O-line did not do anything for him. It was literally Saquon versus that D line. Does that concern you at all? Like, because that was his last game, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Does that concern you at all going into this year?
It does a little, but one thing is that at the beginning of the year, right, the Giants O-line, they hadn't figured it out yet. Like, I know they didn't make many changes moving to the end of the season, but they just hadn't figured out how to mess. Like, they were terrible week 1 and 2, absolutely terrible. I don't even know if Barkley averaged a yard per carry week 1 last year. I think he had like 15 carries and like, I think it was 6 yards. Was it 6 yards?
It was 6, 15
Yeah.
or 6.
So he played, like, the line was terrible. And if you watch the game, 2 guys in the backfield meeting him. But towards the end of the year, Devontae Freeman, Wayne Gallman, these guys are actually like, they were having productive games at the end of the year. Not very, very productive like the way Saquon would have, but they were having decent games. So I'm not too concerned about the line. I mean, obviously it is a cause for concern because, he doesn't have like a Nick Chubb sort of line, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and just with Barkley, the line probably still the worst in the NFL, but I feel like he's just so talented that he's going to be able to overcome it. I mean, we've seen him do it before. I don't see why he wouldn't be able to do it again. Just the one thing that concerns me is just the workload. I mean, I don't know. Is it going to be 70-30? Is it going to be the 90-10 that we're used to? I mean, that's what I'd want if I was to take him like top 3-4. I'd want that insane workload just because of how bad the O-line is. I feel like the workload and his talent combined would be able to offset it, not just the workload or talent alone. Again, he's saying he's not going to, doesn't know if he'll be ready for week 1. It's just a very risky situation, one to monitor. I mean, maybe the guy comes out and he's participating right away in training camp, looking like his old self. Maybe we take him at number 3 by the time draft season comes around. But for now, I think 5, 6, that's the type of place where you should be taking him right now.
Yeah, I think Saquon's the type of player, like if you're a guy that's just like all in, you like to take risks. I think Saquon's the player for you because if he hits, he can be like the RB2 overall. But I think the other cause for concern is even if he is ready week 1, he's just like so talented that I think the Giants might want to ease him in. Even if he believes he's ready, he might not get the same workload as you'd expect him to fully healthy because they don't want to re-injure him. He's already had a lot of injury history. So if he says he's not ready, which is already concerning, even if he does get ready for week 1, I still think they might not give him the typical workload you expect from your RB1.
Yeah, I feel like that's a perfect way to put it down. Like, it's a risk reward type of thing with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like if you came like last place in your league like twice, like 2 times already, and like I don't think I'd risk. And if you never won a championship in your league, I don't think I'd ever risk taking Saquon Barkley. Probably want to pick a safer guy like Chubb or somebody, or maybe even Zeke at 6.
I mean, but getting that championship, you do have room for risk. I'll take another last year if I have to. He's talking about
No,
me.
yeah, and just going back to the championship, it's just unfortunate, especially if your 4 friends all have rings, 4 other guys that you work with all have rings, but you don't.
Yeah, Imagi liability. That guy, right?
Yeah. We're talking about Nav, by the way. No ring. The rest of us have rings.
All right. So if you guys have nothing to say, I think we're just gonna wrap it up here, guys. Thank you for watching, and make sure to tune in for our next couple RB videos. We're gonna be doing the same thing, an in-depth analysis of the next 6 RBs. So make sure to tune in, subscribe, like, and comment who you agree with most in this video. Thank you for watching. See you in the next one.